Hello, dear foodie friends, and welcome to Kitchen Chat. This is your host, Margaret McSweeney, and I'm so glad you're joining me today. I can't wait for you to meet our guest. Now, let me preface this a little bit. It's not our typical discussion of fine cuisine and luxury experiences and speaking with chefs, but this is something that impacts each of us. Some of us every day, some of us a few days a week, whatever. But I would like to introduce you to Monica Rothgery. She is the author of a new book called Lessons from the Drive-Thru. And there's also another subtitle. We'll jump into that. But it does relate to you in a lot of ways and it relates to me. So fast food. We're going to learn today what goes into fast food. Are there chefs who are actually trained in this? What does that look like? In addition, we're going to discuss about her role. She was chief operating officer for Kentucky Fried Chicken and that organization, and actually has frontline experience as a manager in so many of their restaurants as well. But she's going to provide lessons she learned from the drive-through and how they can apply to us as managers in our own home, managers of our own lives. And also we're going to discuss with her what it's like to leave the corporate life behind, start a whole new path, and finding purpose and joy in that as well. So welcome to Kitchen Chat and welcome Monica Rothgery.
Well, thank you, Margaret Sweeney. I'm delighted to be here. I feel like I'm kind of like around royalty. Like, you've had top chefs and world-class restaurateurs, and now you have Monica Rothgery. So thank
Oh,
you. Thank you
oh
very
well,
much.
thank you for being on this. And what an accomplished career. Chief Operating Officer. I mean, that is a huge business milestone indeed. Just by way of background, I'm not sure a lot of the listeners know, but my formal training in life was as a businesswoman on Wall Street. So I love the business discussion side of this as well. I feel like I'm in my wheelhouse, and congrats on your amazing accomplishments. So if we could just take a big step back before we dive into the lessons you've learned through the drive-through, um, what does it take to be, what type of training do cooks go through at the restaurants? Because it is a restaurant, it's fast food, but it is a restaurant.
It is. And I am just bursting to tell all your listeners that, we call them kitchens. We do. And we do have cooks. We have team members that take a lot of pride in making a perfect pizza or, executing the Colonel's recipe perfectly so that that fried chicken comes out golden, just with the right color, hot and crispy, just like you would want your fried chicken. And so, yeah, our team members take that really seriously. We take it really seriously. I know, we're not under any false pretense that we're anything close to fine dining, right? We know who we are, but we still take a lot of pride in serving fresh food, safe food that tastes great. And should you eat it every day? Probably not. But is it great when you're, running around or coming through the drive-through, or you just want a fast bite? Yeah, that's what it's there for. There's a certain occasion where it fits perfectly. So specifically team members, yeah, when they join and they're going to be cooks, first thing they learn is all about like sanitation and safety, how to safely handle food so that, we don't get people sick, right? I mean, 4,000 restaurants around the country open in the morning, at lunchtime, at dinner, and late night. That's a lot of occasions, a lot of opportunities for things to go right or wrong. And so the training is really important. And like specifically at KFC, we make our chicken the same way our grandmas made it and the same way the Colonel made it. We get raw chicken into the restaurant, we bread it, and fry it in a pressure cooker, just like Colonel Sanders did. And so we have a lot of pride around that. We don't get, the chicken doesn't come into the restaurant already fried and we just warm it up, right? We actually roll up our sleeves and get flour all over us and bread chicken just like in the old days.
Oh, that is so insightful. And I think that's important for us to get that perspective. So they're actually in there cooking. And I'm sure as a COO in charge of operations, in charge of always aligning the brand, everything has to be pretty standardized as well. That was a lot to run.
Yeah, it has to be, yes, very cookie cutter, because when you go to, whether you go to a KFC in, Dallas, Texas, or Fort Myers, Florida, or where I live in Louisville, Kentucky, or where I used to work in Bangkok, Thailand, you expect, that the Colonel's original recipe kind of tastes the same. That's one of the things that you expect from a brand. And so the only way that that happens is to have real good consistency in processes, procedures, and ingredients. And to make
Well,
everybody try and do it the right way.
yes, absolutely. So tell us about your beginning. Your culinary journey, in a sense, began there at a Taco Bell. Can you share with us how it all began?
I would say my culinary journey began in my mom Lori's kitchen, right?
uh,
And just her passion for food and planning meals and cutting recipes. That was probably the foundation of my passion for food. It was such a treat when one time she was over for dinner and she said, "I think you cook better than I do now." And I was like, that was a high praise when it comes from your first trainer. My first job was at Chuck E. Cheese, and I did really have fun making beautiful pizzas. I think making a perfect pizza is just magical because you put it into the oven and when it comes out, you can see it. It's like a little piece of work of art. Is the pepperoni perfectly placed? Is the cheese distributed right to the edge? Is there like mushrooms in every bite? That was a fun game, and probably the first place I really got passionate about food and customers. My first job was a restaurant manager at Taco Bell, and
Mhm.
that was my first foray into the long career I had with Yum Brands, where I worked in Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, and KFC. So yeah, I ran a restaurant in Westchester, Illinois, outside of Chicago for 5 years.
Oh, I love these. And the Chuck E. Cheese is giving me flashbacks to the birthday parties when
Oh,
my
yeah,
daughters were little and trying to
sure.
keep up with everyone running
Yeah,
around
it was
there.
fun.
And the pizza was always a highlight. That
It was fun.
brings some great memories. So I'm sure that even within a fast food restaurant, you have the same similar issues as these fine dining establishments, and that is with staff. What in staffing, what are some key lessons that you learned through the drive-through about the best way to staff?
Yeah, it's especially right now, as you know, Margaret,
Mhm.
it's particularly challenging to get
Yes.
people, to retain people. And the restaurants, and we do call them restaurants, right?
Mhm.
The restaurants that are able to do it have one common denominator, and that is they have a restaurant manager, a leader, who creates an environment where those team members feel seen and heard and appreciated and valued. So much so that the team member doesn't think that they work for the franchise owner or even the brand. They work for, well, they work for Margaret. I work at Margaret's Taco Bell, or I work at Monica's Taco Bell. And once you have that loyalty because you have invested in them on a personal level, then they will do anything for you. And that's the unlock. That's the difference right now. What I see in restaurants that are retaining their staff and having good, quality customer service, and restaurants that might be struggling.
Interesting. So how do you invest in your employees? What is a lesson that those listening who might have a restaurant, might not have a restaurant, just, have employees, how do, what are some great insights into the best management
Well, I'm
practices?
like salivating. I can't wait to tell. I mean, there's so many things you can do. When I first took over my restaurant, it was a disaster. It was a train wreck. And so
Mm,
I barged in, large and in charge, had my new name tag, restaurant manager, and I started like fixing everything. I knew what the manual said. So I was reorganizing this dry storage area, organizing the reaching cooler, the walking cooler, the line. Everything was in the wrong place. And trying to get this restaurant cleaned and organized. And about 2 weeks in, 3 of my team members walked off the shift right in the middle of lunch with 50 people in the dining room. We were having a fight about washing green onions. And the team member just refused to wash the green onions, and it escalated, and they just left right in the middle of lunch. And I was left literally with 50 customers in the dining room and another probably 10 or 15 cars in the drive-thru, trying to just make food as fast as I could. It was the worst shift of my life. And then when I reflected on that, I was like, what just happened? Why were they so angry? And what I realized was I would have been angry too. Because here comes me. I just barged into their restaurant, their work environment, started moving stuff around. I didn't ask them. I can't even tell you their names because I really don't get to know them, their families, what's important to them, why are they working at Taco Bell, let alone anything about their job. Like, what could we do to make it easier? Why do we put the sauce here and the packaging there when the manual says differently? I would have been angry at me too if just like, if somebody came in and started reorganizing my desk right now where I'm sitting. What right did I have to do that? It was their work environment. And so that's, I think, where engagement starts, is just learning about them and what they care about, why they're there. And then it's more than that. It's beyond that. It's finding ways to support them, whether it's, I had one manager tell me she was going to her, this was just last month. She was going to her, one of her team members' plays. She had the lead in the high school play, and she was going to watch her team member in the play. That team member will remember that manager was at her opening night as much as she remembers that her parents were there. That's the kind of investment I think it takes to really convince and show that you love your team.
Wow. So it's not only the monetary investment, it's the relationship investment
Yes.
that's important.
And the more they
This,
care about,
yeah.
right, the more they know they are cared for, the more they're going to care about the success of the restaurant because they care about you, manager. And then that all translates into magical guest experience, customer experience, right?
Absolutely. And I think you also touched upon something where you have to be, as a leader, able to do every single thing of the process, because they left you in the middle of rush hour with lunch hour, and you were back there doing everything on your own.
Yeah. It was, I think there were 3 or 4 of us left, and one person was working at the drive-through window and one person was at front counter, and there was me and another person. But it was, yeah, you do have to know how to do everything. But another mistake that managers often make is that they lose focus on the business and the customer because they are so busy doing the team members' jobs. And that's another key insight I talk about all the time in my keynotes, which is, and whether this applies to any business, that if everyone's doing the job of the person underneath them, they're not doing their job. They're not doing what's theirs to do. So if the restaurant manager is busy making food, who's running the restaurant, right?
Right.
And so that's kind of one of my passions, is to help restaurant managers, leaders, identify clearly what is your role, and then are you doing that? Or are you doing the role of the jobs of the people underneath them?
Exactly. But it is important for the other colleagues to see that, hey, you're willing to roll up your
Yeah.
sleeves when needed and get there beside them and help them. Yeah.
That's another, you're right. You're absolutely right. I mean, I love jumping on the line and making tacos but oftentimes they're like, just get out of the way, you're too slow. When the team starts, I saw this all the time when I was in restaurants as a COO. The manager would start to see 3 or 4 orders popping up, and they would get anxious and they would feel like they had to go rescue the team. And so they'd barge onto the line and then start to help. And the team members would kind of drift away. They'd go get a drink, go check their phones, more than happy to let the manager
Mm.
clear the orders. And instead, what I talk about in my book is instead of just barging over and building dependency, just go and
Mhm.
ask them, do you
Mm.
need any help? And almost every time they'll say no. And then if they do say yes, what is it how can I help? And they may say, well, just wipe down the line, or I need some more lettuce. Can you bring something up from the back? That will tell you what they need. And then again, similarly, that's showing respect. It's not just barging in and doing their job, but honoring that they can tell you what they need if you ask them, you know?
Absolutely. So I do have a question. What is your favorite thing to order um, at Taco Bell
What,
and
Taco
KFC?
Bell? Crunchwrap Supreme at Taco Bell, for sure, hands down. Have you ever had a Crunchwrap Supreme? It is like this beautiful, delicious, everything in one bite um product. And then, although Taco Bell just today rolled out this new product line called Cantina Chicken, so I'm going there for dinner to check out their new line. At KFC, I'm kind of committed to original recipe.
Hmm.
It's this hot, soft, golden original recipe. There's nothing better than that. And Pizza Hut, I'm pretty much thin. I like thin. How about you?
I would say all of the above. That sounds great. And I love that still the basic tenets of fine cuisine can find their way into that because it's so important to have the crunch. I learned that from several interviews, within the salad and everything, you always have to have a crunch in the profile of the flavors. So you've created that. And I do want to share a really funny story
I love
that
funny
ties in to Julia Child and quote fast food at Costco. Not any of the KFC or Yum Brands, but it is a funny story. I was interviewing um, this wonderful chef, and he and Julia were very close friends, and he serves on the board of directors. And he said that he went to take her out to lunch and hit Julia Child and said, Julia, where do you want to go to lunch? And expecting to hear, oh, this restaurant or this restaurant. She goes, let's go to Costco. And he's like,
No.
Costco? Yes, let's go to Costco. They have the best hot dogs ever. So he shares the story about Julia Child and himself having hot dogs at
That's,
Costco. People would walk by.
uh,
Is that Julia Child? Oh, no, she wouldn't be here having a hot dog at Costco.
that's a
But yes, she did.
that's a fantastic story.
So
You know,
thank you, Chef
I mean,
Jim.
like I said, we know who we are, but we do have
Yes.
professional chefs in our
Okay.
corporate restaurant support centers. We have food scientists who
Mm-hmm.
spend a lot of time and work with our vendors and suppliers to find innovative ways to offer new products, whether it's new sauces, new flavors, new holders, like different forms and functions, different proteins. And so one of my favorite days, it only happened 4 times a year when I was COO, was the entire food innovation team would have a lunch for us, the leadership team, and they would bring in, oh my God, so much unbelievable food. And some of it was a little crazy, but just to try stuff and get reactions of different flavors, different sauces. What would like an apricot jelly sauce, spicy apricot jelly sauce taste like on a, chicken sandwich, for example, or,
Right.
lettuce, or how about, a different flavor of cheese. And oh my gosh, it was so fun. But then afterward, just wanted to like take a nap because he had so much delicious food to sample. So we do put a lot of time and effort to try and
Mm-hmm.
innovate. And I always marveled at our food scientists and our chef because they don't have the whole ingredient palette that a fine dining chef has,
Right.
right? They have a
Right.
box that they have to operate within, and whatever they create has to be replicatable in 4,000 restaurants around the country, thousands of times a day.
That is just amazing. Can you pull the curtain behind a little bit, uh, so we can understand what goes into selecting what's next? And do you see any key trends that are affecting that in terms of, oh, people are, this is, I guess, okay, let me try to rephrase that. Do you see trends impacting, like flavor trends, taste trends impacting what is included on the menu? Is there a more strategic perspective? How was it decided?
Oof, that was our whole job as a leadership team, right?
Wow.
I had a marketer and, a CMO and a head of finance and,
Mhm.
myself in operations and the whole leadership team was trying to do that exact thing. How do we, what's next? How do we continue to
Mhm.
innovate? Because for one thing, for sure, people want to try new things, right?
Yes.
And so we study fine dining. There was folks in the marketing team who would go out to different markets and try different sauces, different concepts. We rolled out a few years back chicken and waffles, and
Yes, brilliant.
that started in, that was more of a fine dining, diner almost concept that we were able to replicate. Nashville Hot, another great example that was
Mm.
rolled out before I got to KFC, but another great example of a trend that we embraced. I think what's coming, fresh, the fresher
Mm.
food feels, I think the more people are gravitating towards it. And I think
And
ultimately tasting,
how do you bring the freshness into the fast food restaurant?
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, because of the volume and the number of
Mhm.
restaurants, you've got to have a really wired in supply chain system and distribution system. And then I think you just have to lean into ingredients that you can keep fresh and don't even try to mess with things that you can't keep fresh. And then the unlock, I mean, for all of fast food, the unlock is velocity. In other
Mm.
words, selling as much as possible of an item so it doesn't have the chance to not be fresh or hot
Right,
or cold if it's
right.
supposed to be cold. The worst experiences in any restaurant is when you get food that's been sitting, right? And
Absolutely.
the only reason food's sitting is because you don't have enough velocity to keep the product moving through the restaurant. But
Wow.
that's part of the art. That's part of the fun of it. And you got to test a lot. You test a lot of things. Most of the things you test don't work. And then every once in a while, hopefully you hit a home run.
Absolutely. And you've hit several home runs. Congratulations. And I'm sure that plays a big part in that, the storage, the coolers, the ovens,
Yeah,
all of that.
yeah, every piece of it, you're right. I mean, and that's where innovation's helping a lot too. The equipment companies are coming up with better ways to, cook, to
Mhm.
hold so that products can stay fresher, longer, and more innovative ways. So yeah, it's a fun and exciting time. It really is. And then
Oh,
delivery brought a whole nother layer, particularly with
yes.
COVID, where now everyone's trying to figure out how do I take my product that maybe I designed it to eat in the restaurant or take through the drive-through and have it maintain its quality while it goes from, the restaurant to a driver to then your home so that when you open it,
Mhm.
it's still the same experience. That's a challenge.
Absolutely. Wow. Speaking of other challenges, and I'd love to hear your lessons from the drive-through. Customer service. I can imagine that it is one of the most challenging jobs for a manager to deal with customer service. And you, I read, had coffee or a drink thrown at you from an angry customer.
Yeah.
What are your lessons learned from the drive-through about customer service, and how we can relate to that?
Yeah, I mean, just for clarification, when I refer to the drive-through, it's not just the lane that the customer goes
Right.
through, but I'm talking about the whole restaurant.
Mhm.
Um, you know, it is challenging. I think as a manager, it's a little bit easier, right? But I think the hard part is helping the team, especially the younger team members, not overreact, not
Mm.
take it personally. So one example, one thing I used to try and do was instead of when a customer had a complaint or something didn't go right, oftentimes we expected the team member to apologize. And saying I'm sorry is one of the hardest things for a human being to do. It implies guilt. It requires some humility. And you're asking a, 19, 17, 20-year-old person to do it over and over again. And oftentimes whatever happened wasn't their fault.
Right.
And so I was like, let's stop with the I'm sorry. Instead, let's just say that shouldn't have happened. You ordered your, burrito without sour cream. You got sour cream on it. That shouldn't have happened. Let me fix it for you.
Right.
And in those two sentences, it's a win for the team member because they don't feel like they have to be humiliated or apologize. And then it's a win for the customer because they've been heard. That shouldn't have happened. And then ultimately they get what they want fixed. So it's things like that that can help younger employees in particular not take it personal and
Mhm.
and and solve the problem. Now, some people are just going to overreact and be upset, and then we just have to learn how to walk away.
Right. Oh, that is brilliant advice. Great life advice, truly, to
Yeah,
where you can apply that, listeners and viewers, in your own situations, even as a parent,
right.
you know,
Like if you,
just
I'm sorry is really hard. So
yeah,
I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have said that. I won't say that again. How do we move
right.
forward, right? It
Yes.
implies I'm sorry, but it's not quite as hard to say as, that shouldn't have happened. I shouldn't have said that.
Absolutely. And moving it forward. I love that. Any other key lessons, some of your favorite unexpected lessons from the book that you would like to share? And listeners and viewers, I will have a link on kitchenchat.info so you can order the book.
Oh, thanks so much. So the book takes place when I was a restaurant manager 30 years ago, and then I tell stories about what happened, and then reflect back on what I learned from those experiences and how they stayed with me. But probably one lesson that I think was just changed the trajectory of my career was we were getting a visit from corporate. And
Mm.
I was in Chicago and corporate was in Irvine, California. And so this was a big deal. There was, probably 5,000 Taco Bells in existence at that time. And they were coming to my restaurant in Chicago. So I spent weeks, just like the other managers, planting flowers and painting, restriping the parking lot and making sure the windows were sparkling and there wasn't one scuff mark on the walls. And they were supposed to be at my restaurant at 2. And at 2 came and went and they weren't there. And
Mm.
so we were, all calling each other, are they there yet? Are they there yet? Well, at 6:30, I gave up. I decided they probably
Mm.
weren't coming. And that was a disappointment. I was pretty crushed. But then all of a sudden I got a call from the Taco Bell in the next suburb that they were there. They had showed up and they were on their way to my restaurant. They got to my restaurant a little after 7 o'clock. I'd been there 14, 15 hours at that point. And I engaged with the people from corporate. I told them things about what I thought about the training. And that visit then led to a job opening a couple of years later because they
Mm.
remembered me. And what I found out was Sandy Spivey, who was on that tour, insisted that they go to every restaurant. The team wanted to leave and go to dinner because they were tired too. But she said, no, those managers are waiting. We need to show up. And so the chapter's called Be Like Sandy. It's about showing up for your kids, showing up for your partner, showing up for your teams because they are counting on you. And it might not matter to you, but that one-on-one that you canceled or that phone call that you didn't return matters to that person.
Mhm.
Because Sandy showed up, I was given an opportunity that like changed the trajectory of my entire life and my career.
Amazing. So showing up and also speaking up
Yeah.
because you shared what your thoughts were, and your thoughts were so valuable. And I guess we all have to believe in our strengths and being able to communicate that.
Yep, that's right, for sure.
Oh, that's so inspiring. So anyone out there listening today, what advice would you give them if they are at a place in their employment, they want to take this next step? what would you recommend to that person?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I think your unlock is to find what brings you joy, right? And then do more of that. Do the thing that brings you joy, because when you do the thing that brings you joy, it's probably because you're doing what is uniquely yours to do. And that can be in the back of a Taco Bell or a Pizza Hut or a KFC restaurant. It could be at the register at a Costco. It can be anywhere where you're shining your light in a way that makes people's days a little brighter, that, you know, makes the world a little bit better of a place. I think that's the unlock, Margaret. It's just finding the things that bring you joy and doing more of it. Do what
I
you're
love that. Yes, yes, that is so important. Finding and living your joie de vivre, just finding and living your joy. And you are doing yours so joyfully. You found your path. And let's kind of take it to the next step now. So you finished up your senior role
I
as
did.
COO
Mhm.
fairly recently.
Yep.
And then it's your turn to say, what's next? So how do you determine for someone out there that might be listening that's at a point where they're ready not to pivot, pirouette, I guess, or unlock? I like those words, unlock their joy. What advice do you have for them? And how did you make that decision in your own life?
I wrote down on a piece of paper all the things that depleted me,
Mm,
that took energy from me. And then on the other side of the paper, I wrote all the things that bring me joy and fulfillment. And I
mm,
said, I want to do as little of that as possible and as much of this as possible. And all the things that were on the joy side were related to supporting frontline leaders. I've
mm.
always, my entire career, been a cheerleader, advocate, coach, lead, mentor, advisor, role model for frontline leaders, because I just believe the people that lead the people that deal with customers have the power to change the world. Whether it's at a car rental place or in a restaurant or a retail store, those frontline leaders, those managers, they're the first boss our kids get when they come into the workplace, right? They
Yes.
change lives. They interact with customers, thousands and thousands of customers every day. Service and retail is the biggest industry outside of the government. And so I knew that that was my passion, and was just finding, a voice and a platform. And so, through the book and speaking, I just hope to, get the message out to as many managers and leaders as I can, that they have the power to change lives. So don't think of yourself as, oh, I just run McDonald's, or I just run, 7-Eleven. No, you are impacting lives every day.
Oh, I love that. And you are impacting lives and
Oh, thanks,
encouraging
Margaret.
us
You are
all.
impacting lives.
Oh.
You give a platform, and you bring so much joy. I love like listening to your shows and hearing like really smart people talk about food in a way that's so friendly and fun and relatable. Yeah, you bring like, really cool people into my like headphones. It's awesome.
Oh,
You
thank you so
okay.
much. That means a lot to me. Thank you. And listeners and viewers, we are going to have a link to this. Another thought I have, because my tagline is savor the day, SAVOR the day, but also I like to think of it as savor, SAVER, the day.
Oh, right. Yeah.
What advice would you give from a financial perspective, both from a business perspective and running a business, but personally, how people can savor the day, SAVER?
Eat at fast food a little more often.
That's a good one, yes.
Well, trade down and go to a Costco for a hot dog. You,
Yes.
you know, no,
No.
I mean, I don't know that I'm an expert in that area to really have a lot to share about that, but I think if you just find ways to do what you love, and then devote your energies, your time, talent, and treasure to those things, I think you'll find that abundance follows. I feel
Mm.
like I have a personal belief that abundance follows joy. and fulfillment. And when you're, serving the world and doing your thing, it just seems to me that abundance follows that. So maybe you don't need to worry so much, like in the restaurant, don't worry so much about the bottom line. Increase the top line.
Love that. Oh my goodness, Monica, thank you so much for bringing your joy and your gift to the table today here at Kitchen Chat. Congratulations on your book, Lessons from the Drive-Thru. And what is the subtitle?
Real life wisdom for frontline leaders. And pretty
Yes.
much any leaders, though.
Absolutely. And I'll make sure we have a link so everyone can access and find that and start living their joy. So, Monica, thank you again for being on
Oh, thanks,
Kitchen Chat.
Margaret. This was so much fun. I really appreciate you.
Oh, thank you. And thank you, dear foodie friends, for continuing to join me on this journey of Kitchen Chat. It's always great to hear from you. Please visit me in my kitchen, kitchenchat.info. And always remember to take a moment and savor the day.